Ukraine situation it hasn't improved. If anything, it's more intense and more dangerous than it was a week or so ago. Now, we had a week or so ago a debate between Faith Goldy and Alex Mihailovich. We're going to replicate, duplicate, well, have the debate again a bit later. Before we do, Alex Mihailovich, Sun News Foreign Affairs in-house expert, joins us. The situation has changed.
Well, not really, Michael, but as we like to do here at Sun News, we like to give a little bit of a different point of view every once in a while from the mainstream media, and let's tap into what's happening in the Ukraine from a sort of a different perspective. So Crimea is the big word of the day. Everybody's saying, the Russians are there, they're annexing Crimea from the Ukraine. Speak to Crimeans, but we can bring up the numbers right here. This is a Ukrainian run, actually, a census from 2001. Look at that, 58.5% ethnic Russians, 24.4% Ukrainians in that region. So do the Ukrainians want to, or do the Russians want to be with Russia? Well, that's up to them. On March 16th, they were going to vote, and they will tell us what they want to do in the future. If you look at the past, some of these Russians that have lived in the Crimea part of the Ukraine up to now since 1991, that's the only time that Crimea has ever been a part of the Ukraine is since 1991, because prior to that, it was a part of the USSR and just under the jurisdiction of the Ukraine from 1954 when Khrushchev gave it to them.
Was one of the, 15 or 16 republics within the Soviet Union. Khrushchev did give Crimea to Ukraine. So
yes.
Since that was in the 50s. So it's enjoyed a certain degree of, if not autonomy, the idea that it doesn't belong to Russia, it belongs to Ukraine. After 50 years, 50-odd years, 60 years, you just say, no, that's done. No, it goes back to Russia.
Well, look, it's an autonomous state as it is, or autonomous region within the Ukraine. So obviously there's always been some sort of touchy feelings about what the Crimea really is and who it's belonged to prior to 1954. We know it's been all over the place. That said, however, so that's an argument in itself. Where's Crimea going to go? Is this really a referendum that it's going to be a democratic referendum? That's what the Russians are saying we're going to get. That's what the Crimeans are going to say. They're saying what we're going to get. The Ukrainians, however, are saying not a centimeter of Crimea is ever going to be lost from the Ukraine, and that's the new government that's there. Now, here's the problem with the new government that's in the Ukraine. They don't really have that much support from their own people, first of all. Why the Russians got a little bit ticked off from the very beginning, you have ultra-nationalists that were promised to have seats in the new government, as well as the fact that one of the first things they did is rip apart minority languages and saying there are no more minority languages from this point forward in this country.
Which were what?
Russian, you have Albanian, I believe is one of them, Bulgarian, Greek, I think, also falls into there. So there's very small populations.
When Ukraine did have its brief period of independence back in, what was it, the 20s or before the first? Anyway, the currency, I didn't know this, was in Ukrainian and Yiddish too, because it was a sizable Jewish minority. So they respected, even though there were tensions, they respected minority rights. This idea, though, that the far right, that fascists are involved, the Russians have put out propaganda. There's a poster that has Ukraine with a swastika on it. This is what happens if you vote to be independent or to be with Ukraine, and the other one has the Russian flag. So you've got to vote with Russia or you're voting for fascism. That's an old Russian trick.
Look, there's any way you look at it, there's a small percentage within this new opposition that's taken over that are ultra-nationalists. And let's take it one step further here. There was a false flag that was tossed out by the opposition forces. And you have to listen to this. This is a conversation between Urmas Paet, he's the Foreign Affairs Minister of Estonia, and Catherine Ashton, she's the EU Foreign Affairs Chief. Paet has said that this is true. This has happened on February the 26th. Listen to this conversation and tell me what you think about the new opposition government.
My impression is in this sense sad that there is, no trust towards also these politicians who will return now to the coalition. People from Maidan and from civil society, they say that they know everybody who will be in new government. All these guys have dirty past. All the evidence shows that people who were killed by snipers from both sides, among policemen and people from the streets, that they were the same snipers killing people from both sides. That there is now stronger and stronger understanding that behind snipers, it was not Yanukovych, but it was somebody from the new coalition.
And this is what we call a false flag, my friend. And this happens all the time. Look, this is international diplomacy. What we're doing right now as Canada and what the West is doing is what they have to do.
Faith Goldy's been sitting here. You haven't seen her face. I have. And if looks could kill, your entire family would be gone by now. But Faith?
I didn't know that Sun News employed Soviet apologists. Let's start there. Yeah, you're 100% right in saying that a lot of the coalition is flawed. Take the leader of Crimea right now, who was installed at gunpoint and in a real election garnered 4% of the popular vote. Can't wait to see what Thursday's referendum pulls out for him, though. No international observers allowed there, by the way. Look, this is Putin, who, by the way, was the one who referred to the ending of the USSR and the Cold War as, quote, tragic. He will use every part of his military power, every economic leverage, and Western inaction to seize Crimea and eventually take more parts of the eastern borderline of Ukraine. Stakes could not be higher. Why? Because Russian oil flows through Ukraine. What the EU needs to realize is that they need to stop suckling at Russia's teat. Merkel needs to get her head out of the cloud, stop being an appeasing apologist for Soviet-style propaganda. Propaganda, by the way, Michael, which you accurately pointed out about basically vote with the Nazis or vote with Putin, KGB scum. All of Russia Today's maps, by the way, show Crimea as already part of Russia.
And look at Crimea. I mean, really, when you're talking about pipelines, how many pipelines go through Crimea, Faith? They're mostly through the rest of Ukraine. And that's not what Putin's going for. He's going for Crimea, where you have a 58% population that is Russian in that part of the Ukraine right now. And if you're talking about those people, hey, you know what? If they want to be with Russia, let them be with Russia.
Yeah, okay,
this is not a reason. And I know what you're going to say, you know, this is something that it's worth going to war over. No, it's not. No, it's not. Because simply put, this is an argument that we've seen happen time and time again, be it Russia taking an area like that, be it the U.S. and Grenada. These are geopolitics. This doesn't make any difference in the world. If the Ukraine wants to actually to be free of a problem, get rid of Crimea. Hand it over to the Tatars. You're going to have the Tatars coming back.
Okay, let's just give Quebec over to whoever is the top bidder as well.
Look,
you know what? You're talking about majority, whatever, ethnic Russians, basically folks who can speak Russian there because that's the language in which they were educated. Let's talk about the minority. The 15%, or as your numbers there said, 12%, okay, within that region of Crimean Tatars that were tossed out by the Soviets, tossed out by the Russians, and not accepted back into their homeland until 1991.
That you want to bring back to the Ukraine.
Look, these are the same people who are yelling out Allah Akbar and Slava Ukraina in the same, sentence. These people understand that under Ukrainian leadership, they are safe. Their minority interests are preserved and looked after.
And that's why their language rights were just ripped apart.
Well, the language
by the new neo-Nazi. Look, that's what you're looking at.
You're looking at a percentage. Russia Today and read a few other people's perspectives.
I know you'd love to start a war here, but the whole fact of the matter is this is not worth going to.
The war's already started. The invasion's already occurred.
There is no invasion. Even if you look at any mandates or from 1974, what the UN wrote, and I don't know what. I know that you're very good at quoting these type of things from United Nations and from whoever else. This is not considered an invasion at this point. There haven't been any shots fired that have hit anybody, at least. I don't know who's shot at who. Listen,
100 people are dead.
I do not want to put, yes, by what we just heard, are snipers that were hired by the opposition.
Let's talk about that. This was effectively the foreign minister of the European Community, an English woman who is a little left of centre, perhaps, but pretty stable. She's in Iran right now, actually, meeting with the Iranians. She wants to achieve peace. And the Estonian foreign minister, why would either of them lie about this in a private conversation?
I don't understand why, without evidence, we're to believe either of them. In a turbulent, war-like atmosphere, you can hear a lot of things through the grapevine. I'm pretty sure that guy looks like the same guy who just shot at one of the allies and then said it's the coalition now.
You're talking about the foreign minister of the entire European community and the foreign minister of a neutral and rather admirable nation. These are not irresponsible zealots. They're trying to communicate.
No, I understand it, but what I am just asking is perhaps they are a bit out of touch with what is happening on the ground, just like the scores of media that are reporting there has been, quote, no blood shed in this invasion, when we know that there have been thousands of pictures that have been erupting all across the Twitter sphere of Ukrainian nationalists in Crimea with blood dripping down their face, being forced to bow and pay tribute, quite literally, in the year 2014 to Russian henchmen and mercenaries.
Ukrainian nationalists, that's the ones I was talking about, the ultra-nationalists. But beyond that, you know what?
Not ultra necessarily.
I just want to say one thing. You know, I do not want to put your babushka in the front lines of fire for the Crimea, because I believe that the Ukraine has a good future and it does not need Crimea.
It does. No, look, first rule of business is stay in business.
I want to discuss something here. When you said Faith said nationalist, you said, yes, the people I'm talking about, the nationalists. There's Ukrainian nationalism, mainstream, moderate, ecumenical, nationalism. We are Ukrainians, we want to be Ukraine, whether we are Jewish, Muslim, Christian, whatever, Orthodox or Catholic. Then there are the ultra-nationalists who surely represent at most, what, 7-8% of the population,
But
and probably a lot less.
But look, Michael, it's a small percentage, but this small percentage has been recognized by the rest of the opposition, and they were promised to have seats in the new government. How do you do that and have any self-respect?
Well, if they if they do have support, you have to give them some sort of representation, surely.
Look, I'm sorry, but in this world, including in Ukraine proper, we have rules. If you want to secede, there's a way to do it. This has not been a natural secession. This has been Russian occupation after an invasion.
Oh my gosh!
And
really?
what
Are
it
we
does
talk about
is
it
violates Ukrainian constitution.
Guys, one at a time.
It violates the Ukrainian constitution, and it violates all of international law. And it is up to the Western world, to the leaders within the G7, and forget the P5 right now, to uphold these rules. Putin has been playing
rules that they haven't followed themselves.
Putin has been playing puppeteer with Obama in Iran and again in Syria with his pink crayon red line. He's laughing. This is his third strike, and Obama's just sitting there and says, my consequence is a phone call.
Well, let's not get into Syria. I mean, that's a whole different ballgame. And
well, it's not.
I mean,
Putin
really.
has
So the U.S. should have gone into Syria, and now you're saying that the U.S. should go into Ukraine, and they should be sending their troops on the ground, right?
Well, NATO could, because you know what? You know why the U.S.
We're not talking about a NATO nation, because if we're going to talk about international law and mandates, NATO has no mandate to the Ukraine.
You know why?
Last 40 seconds. Yeah, you're going to mention.
Do you know why? Because of the fact that
last 40 seconds. I just want a prediction here, because surely there won't be international conflict. But what will happen?
I think this is going to be a long war of attrition, essentially, and I think that we are going to have Western boots on the ground from a NATO force.
Really?
Truly. I'm talking 7-8 months here. I'm not talking within the next couple of days.
This is going to happen nice and clean. If my prediction, what I'd hope to see is independent Crimea. More likely, it's going to become a part of the Russian Federation, which I think is then more of an assault to international law, just simply because there's other issues in this world where countries are going to want to annex other places. Like I mentioned last week, China taking Taiwan. It's much easier to do once you have Russia taking Crimea just like that. So I think that's an issue. Crimea being independent, I think that would be the best case scenario.
Lovely to see the two of you getting along so well. Thank you.